Okay. Testing. You can't see the audio? Me neither. It should be working now. That's so funny. It was working this whole time. I just was I just didn't hit go live. So there's like two parts. You gotta like stream on your OBS, and then you have to hit go live on the YouTube thingy. That's why people were not able to see or hear me. I was like, why can't anyone see me? All right, there we go. Now it's working. I was like, what? There's no way. Like I could see the audio. It's working fine. Happy New Year's, everybody. So I thought I'd do a character design for the New Year's. A little bit less monstrous, a little bit more like an actual character that might actually look cool and be in a video game or a project. But I'll try to get one in before the year ends. Just because I kind of missed a couple streams already, and I've already kind of wanted to make sure that I didn't do this. I wanted to have a habit of doing a stream as often as possible. Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to see you. It's just me, so if you guys are asking questions or writing comments, I'll check periodically every few moments after I lay down some marks to see what's up in the chat and respond. I'll respond to y'all. Yeah, so as the new year is coming, I have some things that I want to kind of do differently. I've already kind of started doing them. My thoughts on New Year's resolutions as well are as the following. I don't really think about whether I'm going to change something in the whole year, if I'm going to do something different. And if I am, I think it's probably best to do something that's pretty much what I was going to do anyway, regardless of the new year. It's just to give me excuse to just say that's what I'm going to do. One of them is I'm going to be drinking less. I just don't want to be drinking as much as I do. I think I'm just getting too old for it. And honestly, it's kind of pointless to just drink as much as I do. I think there was a time where it made sense and people were having a good time, and it's a lot of fun to get wasted, but it just isn't good for long-term health. I think the damage has already been done too. So I'm like, kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna be done with it. No more drinking. I will still go party and still do stuff like this because I do like to hang out and dance and have a good time with people, make friends. But I don't necessarily need to drink. In fact, I think I was pretty good about not drinking way before I was able to drink. Even though a lot of my friends were doing it when I was a kid, just never felt the need. Felt like I had enough energy without it. And then I just started doing it as a matter of fact because I was able to. And then I just was like, I don't know if I would kind of want to continue doing this. Just be healthier in general. Try to sleep better. I already eat pretty well. Probably try to eat even better. Try to be even healthier. But ultimately, just live a healthier life. I've already kind of building towards this. This is kind of what I'm saying. Like things I've already would have been doing, regardless of a New Year's resolution. I'm just going to do it officially. And another thing that I think I might do is, start to build shorts, actual clothing. I'm just kidding. Like little miniature shorts based off of concepts and ideas that I have. start to teach myself some other skills. So I've learned programming, and I was doing some game developing, and I really enjoyed it, and I really do love game developing. But there's something about there's something about um, games that's just like a lot of work, you know, where we're telling just like a really one-off story. It kind of fits my style. Like I paint really quickly. I work relatively quickly. I don't like to sit on a project for too long. And making a full-on game by yourself is kind of like the opposite of what I like. And so I've kind of just come to grips with that. I did get to learn programming and some real technical skills out of that, and I still enjoy that skill. I think it's a very valuable skill to have, especially even when I start to animate and make things. Like having a programmatic mentality about things will help me create even better stories. I'm sure of it. But with that being said, I want to try to tell stories, visual storytelling. Just make these short films using all computer graphic type ingenuity, doing visual effects, all that stuff, just all rendered off of my little laptop. But with that being said, I think what's going to be cool is that I'm just going to learn a new set of skills. Specifically, the two sets of skills that are going to be interesting for me to start to learn is animation and visual effects. Now, I already started thinking about investing in some sort of motion capture suit or system, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that or just learn how to animate. Because one of the reasons of just learning how to animate and rig will allow me to just kind of animate anything. My limitations will be a bit less. Where motion capture relies a lot on my ability to animate. Or sorry, my ability to just build around my own physique, or people like normal humanoid physiques. And it just seems to make more sense to just learn how to animate. So I think I'm gonna do that. All right, so this guy is coming together pretty cool. I'll call him the triangle because he's pretty much a good giant triangle. All right, let's see if we can get him to have some. Oh, dude, I need to delete cropped pixels. I was working on a project where I didn't need to delete the cropped pixels, so having that still on, that's intense. But I'm gonna go ahead and take this moment to read some of the comments. Let's see what you got here. All right, yo, laying back or laying a bit sick today. Feels bad. What were you thinking of making this time? Just this character here. My New Year resolution is 4,968 by 3,508. I'm funny. You're funny, Silvo. Whoa, did it just start? Yes, I just started maybe like 15 minutes ago. No, not even. Well, I mean, I technically did, but like the stream didn't start maybe until 8 minutes ago. And I have been painting on this for at least 5 minutes beyond. So don't think that I did this only in 8 minutes. It was definitely around closer to 15-minute painting so far. Yeah, I started the stream, and I thought it was started, but it did not start at all. So this looks like a cyborg gorilla. Kind of does. Hello, Goma. That sounds great. Yeah, and I think you're referring to the animation stuff, making shorts. Yeah, because I think I have enough skills. Like I know how to use really good real-time renderers. Like Unreal Engine has a really good system, and I'm really familiar with Unreal Engine, and there's a lot you can do in that that software, and I really like it. So I'm thinking like I could do a lot of stuff, and they just added something called the sequencer, which allows you to kind of have like cinematic type filmmaking inside the editor. And so I'm going to probably just learn more how to use that and then just make real-time cinematics. Like just get in the business of making like 2.5-3 minute short films a month, that looks super dope. And have maybe one or two characters in them, nothing too crazy, and hand animated, hopefully. I think the first month or two is going to be a lot. I'm going to keep it pretty simple, do very low animations, use Blender probably to do a lot of my animations. And then, yeah. I actually want to do some tests before the year begins. So today I was probably going to, after this, I was going to do some tests with Sequencer, if I can do animate bones inside a Sequencer, because there's some potential there to keep it all in Unreal, animate everything in Unreal. If I'm dealing with like robots and stuff, I can probably just do all animation in Unreal, but that might be more work than I'd like. Any plans to put out a graphic novel? Actually, I do. I would do that. I would definitely put together a graphic novel. In fact, I'm working with some friends, but I've come to realize that although I'm more known to draw and do stuff, like making a whole graphic novel is like a thing. And if you've ever taken a class from me, you would know that I have this kind of philosophy that just because you're good at one type of discipline of art doesn't mean that you can just all of a sudden do all the other disciplines. You got to respect everything. So even the cinematic stuff, I think enough of the pieces are planted. Like I know 3D really well. I know how to use Unreal Engine pretty well. I know how to do basic animation. So I have enough there that I'm not like starting 100% from zero, but I'm also like realistic to know that my animation should still be pretty simple. They should still be very like I'm gonna like cut a lot of corners to kind of hide my imperfections. But a graphic novel, it's the same thing, but with a graphic novel, the challenges are like I have to do dynamic environments, like different perspectives, dynamic poses of the characters, which is, I would say that's not the hardest part, but I don't do it enough. And to kind of stay consistent with one character design, that's going to be hard because I always draw a new character. So having to draw the same character again and again and again, I don't know if it'll be more of a challenge than it would be boring. I'll just get bored of it. So I'm trying to find a way that I can keep it fresh and exciting. But ultimately, it may just very much be that I'm just kind of like bored of it, and I just need to get over it and just handle it. And I think one of the ways I can do that is by getting faster, by drawing a character over and over and over and over again to the point where it's like second nature. Then I can just not even think about that I'm drawing a character. I'm just telling a story. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on that. Hey, let's get old Ethan Becker. What's up, dude? Speaking of like multiple disciplines, this guy Ethan, I believe he put out a video recently about like being really good at life drawing doesn't necessarily mean, or like rendering like a life drawing artist doesn't necessarily mean you could take that and put it into a character design. It's different, and respecting those differences I think is very important. And I like that video because he's kind of making that point. So good on you, man. That was a really, really good video. Yeah, because a lot of times I think people think like, oh, I can do art, I can do all arts. No. And I think most of you guys kind of already know this, but sometimes you forget when you try to do a new art type of, like a new style or new kind of genre of art. And so I think it's important to realize that it's all relative. So anyway, Ethan, American shorts would be better. Oh wait, he said shorts would be dope. Love to see that. And then he did American Eagle. You're so retro, my man. You're super American. And then Lewis, do you squint when concepting to help your mind visualize? Did you see me squinting a lot? Was I squinting? I squint because it blurs the image. It makes it more of a graphic read, right? I have friends who just like blur their eyes, like they kind of go cross-eyed. Squinting, it just gets rid of the details. So I squint, nothing's there. I don't like have any kind of philosophical mentality where I'm just like, oh, the inner workings of my design. No, it's not. That's not at all what's happening. All right, I'm gonna get back to this drawing. I'm gonna look at these last few comments. Have you seen? Oh wait, this is the first time I'm watching your stream. I live your style. You live in my style. Sick, dude. Nice. Correction, love. I understood. Have you seen Colin Levy's Skywatch short film? Kind of crazy that the visual effects were done in Blender. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna kind of learn how to do visual effects, but I'm probably gonna do it all inside of Unreal, and then and also I'm gonna probably do very lo-fi. I don't think I'm gonna do like crazy effects. Um, I want to keep the things pretty modest. Something that I could potentially would have been able to film in a real location with a real camera with a small team of people. But as I get better at effects, I'm going to challenge that, right? But I'm going to start small. Let's see what you got. Have you seen? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I was in your last February mentorship. Yep, that is right, Anthony. It was awesome. I appreciate that. Ethan is a good boy. Ethan is a good boy. Hey man, I would have a question. Is it worth trade social life for practice drawing when being young and older? Okay, and I'm going to stop there with Laszlo. So is it better to sacrifice your social life so you can practice? There's no reason to sacrifice at all. Just be better with your time. Okay, and take it from somebody who has been really bad with their time and also really good with their time when it needed to be. Yeah, if you're really bad with your time, what tends to happen is that a lot of these types of things slip through the cracks. So then you end up spending more time making up for the time that you wasted. So if you're really good about managing your time, because I think if you spend about at least a minimum of 4 hours a day, minimum, okay? And that might not sound like a lot of time, but trust me, it's more than enough. Because if you spend 4 hours a day, think about that. How much is that in a week? That's, if you do 5 days, that's 20 hours, right? Then if you put those extra 4 hours during the weekend, that's another 8 hours, right? So that's 28 hours. So about 28 hours every week for a few years, you're going to get pretty good. And it's not like if you're like, well, okay, if AJ says I get good in a few years with 4 hours a day, what if I put 8 hours a day? So then would I get there twice as fast? And there's this kind of idea of like diminishing returns, And this is true whenever you think about like working out. So if you go to the gym and you bench press or you curl some weights, and let's say it's pretty heavy, or no, let's say it's not that heavy. Like let's say it's like, I don't know. You're just lifting weights, like you're doing bicep curls, you're doing like 25 pounds or something like this. And you do them for a good repetition of between 8 to 12. And you do like 4 or 5 sets of that. So you get a lot of volume done in that day. And you do, let's say, just do like lots of curls and other bicep workouts that day just to get those guns. So the intuitive thinking is that, well, okay, if I'm getting stronger by, working this much, by working out my biceps, then maybe if I work out twice as often, I'll get twice as strong. Or if I work out 3 times as often, or as often as I possibly can, I'm going to get stronger. Now, depending on what you do and how you train, you will get stronger and you will build endurance. But let's say you just want to get stronger. In this scenario, it's parallel to learning more and getting better as an artist. Okay, so you want to get stronger. So instead of lifting 25, you want to be able to lift 30, 40 pounds. So then you got to lift 30, 40 pounds. And so you do it for about 5 to 6 reps. And so now you want to think, okay, well, now I want to keep this same thing that I was doing before where I was working 3 or 4 times a week, bicep curls, 10, 15, whatever. But now I'm going to try to do that with this heavier weight. And here's where the problem begins, because when you start to lift a heavier weight, and you do it that first day, you're going to be sore the next day. And if you work out the next day doing the same thing, you're going to get even more sore. And then the following day, if you're even able to lift that much, your body is rejecting the training, because what's happening at that point is that you're overtraining. You're training too much that your body cannot adapt and get opportunity to rest and heal and adjust. And with this idea, I think people fail to realize that when you do these like 4-hour marathon or like 8 to 10 hour marathon for like weeks on end, you're never giving your brain an opportunity to keep that information that you're training in a real solid way, right? You need some time for your brain to kind of process what's been going on. And if you're just constantly flooding it with stuff, you're training the first way that I explained, where if you're lifting the lighter weight, you're doing like, you can do 10, 15. Like I can every day I can go walk for like 2 or 3 miles without really breaking a sweat easily. You know, it's only when I start to run, that's going to be more challenging, right? And if I run faster, it's going to be even more challenging. And when I put my body in a new challenge, I also need to give my body a new opportunity to rest, where I can walk every day for the rest of my life, probably 3, 4, 5 miles without breaking a sweat, without actually really being challenged, because my body's already kind of built for that. So if you are doing these 8-hour sessions and you're just practicing the things you kind of already know, or you're trying to practice new things, one thing's going to happen. Either you're going to get burned out, or you're just getting better at what you already know how to do, or more effectively, you're becoming more efficient at what you already know how to do. And if you don't know how to do that much, and you're not that good, you don't know that much, then you're only really getting better at your level. And that's why the frustration kind of sits in, because you think you're putting all this time in, and it's like, why am I getting like loads better? Well, it's because you're really getting better at this one thing. Trust me, you are still getting better, but it's slow and sure. And for me, that's what's happened for me for like the last 4 or 5 years. But I've built the base that I have a good, solid understanding of a lot of different things, that my skills are getting more efficient, more effective. And so what's coming out of that is just speed. I'm getting faster. Like my design sensibilities and painting skills have not necessarily improved more than they have when I first started. Like when I first started, the first 4 or 5 years, I was just getting better and better as a designer, as an artist, all this stuff. But at some point, I was good enough that I felt like, okay, I can just stay here and just kind of get more efficient. And so, and that's when, you know, for me, I'm happy with where I am at with like painting and stuff. That's why I started learning like programming, and right now like or doing 3D and like other things that have nothing to do with painting, but rather just things that will help me make my ideas come to life in a different way. And I think when people train like really, really hard, they forget, like, it's really important to kind of change the way you think about your training, so that way you can get better more efficiently. And so with that being said, I still think you're still going to get better even with that kind of more aggressive approach. It's just going to hurt more, and it's not going to benefit you in like the long run, because you're going to build like this wrong standard of thinking about how to get better. And like you mentioned, you're going to sacrifice things that you may have not needed to sacrifice, right? Like a social life, which is really important, because if you want to get really good at art and not have friends, then I mean, go for it. But I'm going to warn you, you're not going to be happy. You know, you're going to be a really good artist with nobody that cares about you. Like meaningful people. You want people who care about you, because I have friends who, you know, they admire my artwork because, you know, they can recognize the skill, but they don't engage in this type of artwork. You know, they don't necessarily like the stuff I make, you know, but they're my friends. You know, there's people that I really love and care about, and they love and care about me, and they admire the skill, but they don't necessarily care about what it is and what it's about. These people are great and important to me because these people remind me of who I actually am, not this kind of perceived version of who I am. Because sometimes when you get really popular, or you do really well, or you succeed at some things, you might forget that you're just kind of a normal person that just put a little bit more time and effort in something that most people didn't put time and effort into. I think this is why I do well as an educator, is because I am very relatable, right? Like I talk to people and I refer to myself in a way that doesn't seem over the top, like legendary. I'm very much an average person that just has a lot more patience than I think most people do. And that's usually what the real defining factor is just that patience. And it's not as glorious as to say like, oh, I'm just like really like blessed individual. It's way cooler to say that I'm like blessed, #blessed. But I'm not. I'm just patient. I'm really patient, and I am very resilient. It's very boring. Not a really it's not like a really inspiring story of like how to get really good. It's just no, just keep at it. When I was learning programming, like I would spend easily, like 2 to 3 hours a day just reading articles and stuff. And like if there was a montage, or like if there was a movies where the montage wasn't a montage, it's just like real like live action training of like a lot of these people getting better at stuff. Like in the first Rocky, he trains and it's like in the span of 6 months, but the montage is like 6 minutes or 5 minutes or something. If that montage was actually spread out for like the 6 months, it would be a really boring movie. You'd have to sit there the whole time, watch him go to bed, eat like broccoli and stuff, and just be like, cool, dude. That's why like Instagram and YouTube and like TikTok and any of these types of these formats where you see people with these amazing lifestyles and amazing attitudes about life. It's really deceptive, because most of those people may not actually be that happy, and a lot of times too, it's just not a realistic perception of like what it takes. And it's just like really balls to your wall type of attitude, and it's really motivational and it's really inspiring, but it's not practical or it's not pragmatic, because what happens is that you watch these videos and you hear this person talk about like, never give up, never surrender kind of attitude, and then you go and do it and you feel like giving up and you feel like, oh man, it's so hard and like everything's so challenging, and you just think, well, they must have just fought through this and I'm not, and maybe I'm not built for this. Where the reality is, like, if someone was just being real and it's just like, hey man, like, can you just draw every day for about an hour? And they're like, yeah, of course I can. It's like, well then, yeah, just do that, man. And it's not as glamorous. It's like, oh, well, what else? Like, what else do I have to do? It's like, no, yeah, just keep drawing. Just draw a lot, man. You'll be all right. It's like, yeah, but what? Like you're waiting for this more exciting kind of philosophy, but it's really simple. And I just got a message from somebody on Instagram, somebody that I met at Lightbox, and he was asking like, how do I get like more exposure and how do I get like more work? And I was like, just post often, dude. Like, let me see your Instagram. And I was like, oh, you barely post. You post like once a month or once every 2 or 3 months. I had a student in a class recently, and he posts on average once a year, and I was like, dude, like you're really good. And the reason why you're probably not getting work is because nobody knows you exist. And so he was like, yeah, that's a good point. And so getting to this point I'm trying to make, this larger point though, is, I told this guy, yeah, I post often, and he just messaged me. He's like, yeah, I've been posting often, like you said, and recently I just started getting work. And I'm like, yeah, cool. So as I predicted. And he's like, yeah, I didn't do anything fancy, just post as often as I can. Instead of like once or twice, or once every 2 months, once every 1 or 2 months, posted like once a week, and things started working out. And it's like, yeah, it's a game of patience, right? Just be patient. And this is why like the programs, like the workout programs, don't usually work, because they're really aggressive. Like, oh, you're gonna get super fit in like short amount of time. It's like, no, you're not. Nobody really does. And so, at least no normal person, and the rest of us don't. And so why are you listening to this kind of philosophy and this kind of idea, when you just know it's not true? I mean, you just don't know anybody who truly lives like that and can exist like that, and yet you believe them when they tell you, yeah, I can do this. Like, I can literally selectively pick parts of my body where I can remove the fat by just thinking about it. Like, that's just not how it works. If you want to reduce body fat, if that's what you're into, then you just got to eat less food, most likely, and eat food high in nutrients, so you'll feel good, and your body will feel good, and you'll lose weight. And move around. Like, go for a walk. Yeah, go walk every day for about a mile, and then when you feel good about that, go 2 miles. Seriously, and you'll in like 2 or 3 months you'll be losing weight. It's really nothing crazy, but yet again, it's a very competitive mentality that I don't think a lot of people can kind of like look past. Like, you just want to believe in this kind of fairy tale idea that there is some sort of special way to getting things done. But yeah, you could totally have a social life, get good at art, all in the same time. You just gotta be smart about your time. Like think of it like this: instead of staying up till like 3 in the morning, just wake up a little earlier. You don't have to wake up that much earlier. Let's say you wake up at 10, wake up at 9. Spend that 1 hour that you would normally not be awake working on something, drawing, while you're kind of in the prime of your day. You're just not haven't done anything. Don't go on your phone yet. Just wake up, do some art. And then go about your day like normal. And then maybe after breakfast, after a shower, whatever, maybe after watching some videos on YouTube, be all right, before lunch, I'm going to do another hour of drawing. Do that hour, and then 2 hours before your bedtime, do some more drawing. You get your 4 hours in. And then don't be hard on yourself. Let's say you don't get those 2 hours done in the morning. Let's say you don't get those 2 hours done at night. Did you at least get an hour in? Cool, man. If you didn't get anything that day, then just do it the next day. Just do it. Just make sure to do it. Don't be like, oh, I messed up this like sequence of days. No, it's about that like the long game, like the larger perspective of like, if I were to look at a calendar of like the year and see a dot on every day that you were able to commit, are there more dots than less? Right? Like if you have 365 days and you put 200 days of work, that's good. That's really good. Even if it's like closer to half, you know? Like if it's like closer to like, what is that? Like 185 days, right? That's still pretty good, right? That's half the year. You're working every other day. And if you didn't, let's say you only do like 100, maybe like 80 days out of the year, then obviously don't feel weird that you haven't improved your skills. It's because you didn't commit as much time as you should have. And I think if you look at it in the year worth of like effort, and you can see that you barely put any effort in that like year-long goal, then maybe you can be critical about your habits, about your intuition of how you're getting it done, and try to do better the next time around, right? But if you're thinking day by day, hour by hour, that's too detail-oriented. That's too minute. Just focus on the larger system. Like get a calendar, put it on the wall, and just like, bing, I got it done. That's it. And if you didn't, oh well, whatever. The next day I'll do it. And like I said, look at the year long. Like look at the thing. And if you want to measure sooner than later, then measure by the month. Like maybe instead of looking at day by day, hour by hour, look at the month's worth of effort. How much time did you spend in that month? And you'll start to see. Because if you miss a day, watch, let's do some math. Let's do some math. All right. Okay, you guys can see this calculator. So let's imagine that you spend 4 hours a day. Okay. So you spend 4 hours a day, and you do that at least for 5 days out of the week, right? And you do that for 4 weeks out of the month. Okay. So that's about 80 hours of work that month. That's a pretty good amount of work. It's pretty good. Okay. And if you do that for, let's say, 3 months, for a quarter, that's 240 hours. So remember, that's 240 hours of work for 3 months. Okay. And this is working every work day, taking the weekends off. Okay. Now, let's say 240. So let's say you do the 4 hours, but you only do it like maybe twice a week, right? And you do that maybe 3 times out of the month. Okay, so there's a whole week where you just didn't do anything. And then we do that for 3 months. That's 72 hours. Okay? So you could see getting guilt-tripped, feeling guilty that you didn't work and just kind of like missing days and just feeling more and more lethargic. You can see that in a whole quarter, 72 hours, right, didn't match up to just the easy 4 hours a day for 5 days for a whole month, because that was how much we made, or just how many hours we spent in 1 month. It was about 80 hours, remember? So this is 3 months of work where it's just kind of like off and on, a little here, a little there. So 72 hours in the quarter, and that's not as much as the 240, right? In fact, we're missing, I was going to say like almost close to 160 hours have passed, or have been lost of potential effort. And when you think of it this way, it becomes very obvious that even if you only spent 2 hours every day, right? Let's do the 2 hours for the five. Let's say every day for 7 days, right? So 14, and then times that by 4, because you're doing it every day, and then times that by 3. So you can see even if you did only 2 hours a day, just 2 hours a day, you still beat out on the 72. Or was it 72? I forget. Doesn't matter. So you're still negative 96 hours lost, even going against a 2-hour workday. And that's like nothing, right? And that's like, wait a minute, I can definitely find 2 hours, right? And so this is the kind of stuff that I don't think people recognize. And again, the 4 hours, 5 days of the week, with the weekends off, that allows you to have a social life, that allows you to even have a part-time job. Like right now you're not an artist professionally, then work somewhere, make some money, go to events, buy the tools you need, and practice. You don't have to grind. It helps to spend maybe 6 hours. I would say if you want to go for like what's the most I would suggest you should do in a day, I think 6 hours is more than enough. I think if you go beyond that, I think you're starting to tread into detrimental, gains. That it's not really helping you as much as you might think. I think 8 hours is pushing it. Anything beyond that, you're spending way too much time. And I know this because I did that too, and I didn't get any better. It was only when I was more focused with my training that I started getting better, faster. I was always getting better, but not as fast. When I was like rest and just let my mind like soak in the new information. So hopefully that helps you out. So of course you can have like a social life, dude. I have a social life. I mean, what's the point? Like I like art and I like to be good at it, but I don't like it to the point where I don't have friends and people that I care about that are surrounding me, That's crazy. Like think about like the artists like Vincent van Gogh. He was a very, very alone person, and it did not work out for him in the long term. You know what I mean? And so you need those people in your life. You need to find time to hang out. And plus, it makes you a better artist when you have better, different experiences. I always experience new and fascinating things all the time. And it's amazing. I learn a lot of cool stuff all the time by experiencing new things. Sometimes it makes me better. Sometimes it makes me worse. Either way, something was learned. All right. I'm going to go ahead and read these final comments. Let me see if I can get to the... Let me see where we got. Okay, here we go. Yeah, speaking of the person I was talking about, like I told them that they should go online often. Nuclear Warrior, he's the person. That's so funny. Hey Anthony, would you ever go to the Philippines again? Of course. Squinting equals life's blur filter. Exactly. I made it. Yes, DJ, you made it. 1 hour without distraction feels like 2 hours. Absolutely. That's a great point too, Silva. Like if you can remove all of your distractions, like the things that would distract you, absolutely, you will have even more focus. This is totally true. I draw 3 hours a day. I guess it's better than put 1 more hour in. Do it, DJ. And like I said, you can like build towards the 6 hours. There are some things that you might need to sacrifice if you start getting closer to that 6 hours. Like not going out as often, but you still can go out, especially if you take the weekends off. I suppose client work in comfort zone doesn't count as art workout. Absolutely, Anna. So that's different. If you are working and you have a deadline, you're going to have to cram as many hours as possible to get the work done. Now, with that being said, hopefully you get work where you can at least every hour has value, meaning that if you're spending hours trying to figure out how to do the client's work, you might have not been capable of doing the work in the first place, and so and don't feel bad if this is true. This is true for me as well, and so it happens. But work is work, so you gotta get it done. When it comes to working out and getting better, yeah, being less stressed about it and less like making it more of like a pleasurable experience, or at least making it more of like a routine experience where you know you're just doing it on a daily. You're not focused on whether you're reaching a certain quota or whatever. This is a more forgiving area, but when it comes to work, absolutely, Anna, you're right. You gotta grind. Um, but I'm assuming most people who are asking these types of questions have a little bit more time on their hand, and so they can kind of like think of it, be less stressed, and really focus on getting better. Um, it's like walking versus running, maybe. Yes. Again, I think it's all relative. If you're trying to train, I think it's best to do less hard hourly work. But I've had friends who worked at companies like Rockstar, and they spend like 16-hour days, and those, it's not good. It's not healthy. Even when they're doing work that they know how to do, they're just cramming in as much detail as possible in their games. So it just requires a lot of effort to get it done. But that's different. They're not learning anything. They're just making stuff. They're just creating tons and tons of stuff. Like once I start making my shorts, I'm assuming there's going to be days where I'm going to work a little bit more overtime because I want to get that extra detail in. But that doesn't mean I'm like learning anything. I'm just like, oh, let's just add this little bit of feature here. Oh, let me just add this and this. And the more I do that, it goes back to the idea of the walking and running example, right? Where I'm walking more because I'm doing stuff that I already know how to do. So it's not as draining. And I'm not going to do it to the point where I'm spending 10 hours a day. I'm probably still get closer to 7 hours. But I'm not draining myself. I'm doing it because I want to kind of like push a little bit more. When I'm learning, I don't try to go too crazy because you are in a constant state of discomfort. Like when you're learning new stuff. And when you're in a constant state of discomfort and you do that for long periods of time, it can be really demoralizing and it can really put you back versus putting you forward. So, anyways, comfort zone. Wait, I am having some problems with my career choices. I'm studying industrial design, but I recently started having interest in concept art, but get no time to practice because of my college work. Yeah, that's a hard one. You just got to find a way. You just got to figure it out. I will say, though, that industrial designers tend to become some of the better concept artists because they have a real sense of design. So I would suggest that you just find time, even if it's only a few hours. You're still practicing some sort of artistic skill. So it's not like it's complete waste of your effort, whatever you're doing with industrial design. But just know that you might still want to get in there and do a couple concepts. And maybe during your breaks and your semester transitions, just grind. Like put that time in. Like put those 4 or 5 hours a day in during those times. And I say grind in that sense. Don't grind to the point where you're bleeding out your eyes. Love the camera feed of you talking. Really adds to it. You need to hit me with the facts that I need to take time. Watching people draw awesome stuff in 5 minutes on YouTube leaves me feeling hopeless. Yeah. And there's still people who could probably draw pretty fast, me included, that could make people feel hopeless. But I always try to remind people that it took me a lot of time and practice. But yeah, absolutely. Just having a moment, just like, we're just sketching. I'm just sketching live. We're all talking, hanging out. It's more realistic. I agree about the camera. Appreciate it. AJ, when are you rolling out the new options for your mentorship? One-on-one and single session options, I think you talked about. I actually moved them out already, but I'm not sure if I'm going to commit to them. I already tried it a couple times, and it's a little jarring. Not that I don't like doing it. I actually love doing it. It's just that I'm trying to think. It's so disruptive. It's one of those things I have to go all in on. But I do have another option for the mentorship that's going to be a little bit cheaper that I think might be better for people. Hey, Jay, missed the beginning of this. Happy holidays. Thank you, Joseph. Question. You talk about good and bad habits, and more important than anything is just doing it. Yes. But I've never heard you explicitly explain good habits. What, in your wisdom, are they? Yeah, just consistency. So I think there's a really good book about this. I forget the name. I think it's called like something habit. And in the book, essentially, make the habit, break the habit. I forget. Making it stick. That's about making things stick. There's a good one. Compound effect might be the one I'm thinking. It just doesn't seem like it is the one though. Anyway, there are books that talk about this stuff. There's people who've done this, experienced this. Good habits are things that are going to move you forward, and good intuition goes with good habits. So, for instance, if you have a habit that makes you stop painting for whatever reason, that might not be a good habit, right? If you have a habit that keeps you painting, that might be a good habit, right? So, for instance, this could be a good example of a bad habit where you will start to paint. You will start to paint something like a full character design that you just don't know how to even begin, and you start to paint it, and you immediately get demoralized and stop painting. That's a bad habit because you might have saw somebody do it. You might have saw somebody like show you a tutorial, and you're like, I'm gonna do it, and you do it, and it fails miserably, or you fail miserably, and so now you kind of stopped, and now you're second guessing your whole career and your life choices. This is a bad habit because it's not realistic. Because if you really thought about, and this is what I think is really helpful to hear, is that if you really thought about how it is to get good at something, it takes time and effort. So if you're doing something that's making you like viscerally act in a way where you don't want to put any more effort anymore or time, then that's a bad habit and bad intuition. Stop doing that. So let's say you watch a tutorial and you, instead of drawing and painting the whole character, you just focus on like maybe like the finger or something, or like just the shoulder pad or something that you feel you're pretty close to achieving, and then just do that and just really get good at that. And you find, hey, I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring it out. Then that's a good habit, right? Because you're going to keep painting. And so another good example would be like if you find yourself constantly getting up while you're working, and you just constantly have to refocus on what you were doing, then that might be a bad habit. So you just kind of want to get rid of that. And it's starting to become more of like a thing of like, it's not about like having good habits. It's just like getting rid of all your bad habits, And anything that's a good habit, like I said, would be something that will keep you sitting down for the amount of time that you need to be sitting down for. Another good habit for me is I like to use lists. I like to use timers. I like to just like use a calendar, just keep bugging me and never stop bugging me. And the reason why I say that is because I will forget. Like if they don't bug me again, I will honestly forget that they were looking for feedback on something. Obviously, I want to help out as many people as possible, but I can't help out everybody. But I do have time every once in a while that I can reach out to a couple people and give them quick, notes of feedback when the time is available to me. But a good habit then would be to, instead of ignoring them, just give them the free opportunity of just bugging me periodically. And I tell them like, yeah, remind me like in a week if you don't hear from me, or remind me in a few days. And that's also helpful for them to kind of keep themselves accountable, because maybe they wanted that notes then, but maybe they've learned it on their own and they don't need the advice anymore. Or maybe they can ask a different kind of set of questions, But usually people do. Usually people bug me. There was a person that I met in New York, and I totally forgot I was supposed to help him out. And it was only because I was talking to one of my friends, and then he reminded me of that, and I was like, oh my gosh! And so I immediately messaged him and said, "Bug me tomorrow," so that I can remember to do this thing, and he did. So good habits are just things that will keep you staying put, and that's going to be different for everybody. For me, lists and timers are pretty universally helpful. Like 85 to 90% of the people who start to use lists and timers tend to be a little bit more effective with their habits, or sorry, they're a little bit more effective about getting stuff done. Usually. Anyway, all right, I'm going to read this last comments and call it a day. Hope you guys like this kind of character design that I did. Hey Jay, missed the beginning. Oh yeah, question. Hey Jay, it's Anatole. What's up, dude? It's been a while. Can you please check your Skype messages? I'm asking for your help. Can you write a recommendation? Oh yeah, message me on Instagram again too. I think you messaged me there too. Carbs are bad. Agree. Carbs are bad. I eat nothing but carbs. That's all I eat. I'm vegan, so I have no choice. I mean, there's the keto vegan diet, but I'm not really into that. I'm all about eating my fruits and veggies, potatoes, rice. It's all carbs, man. It's about where you're getting your carbs and fats from, right? That's what it's really about. Hey, Anthony. What about copyrighted images? I practice a lot on cool stuff I find on the internet. Should I post every drawing with these references or from somebody else? So if you're just drawing like copies, then I don't know if you should be posting that. But you should also recognize that doing copies are not necessarily getting better at the kinds of things you want to get better at, especially if you want to be a concept designer. But I will say that if you're doing fan art and stuff like that, yeah, you should definitely post it. And if you're doing like I like studied from this person, then you should always tag or leave a hashtag to that person's art somehow, some way, so people can find the source. If you want to put it directly in your image too, that's fine. Um, Plant good, yes. Carb good, but too much carb is bad. Everyone's talking so funny. I'm gonna move past all this. Bad. Ice cream good. It's so hard to have social life or balance of any sort when you are in art school. Just hang out with other artists, man. Just like that's what I used to do. Me and my buddies would just hang out and do our homework together. It's nothing. Nothing is always going to be easy for you, so you're just going to have to find solutions that make it a little bit easier for you. I don't want to. I don't want to like pass on that. I think that's really important to talk about, but I do also need to get going. I was only going to talk for half an hour. It's almost an hour. Oh yeah, definitely a great place to network, but outside of school, you don't get to have much of a life, honestly. Okay, here we go. We're getting through it. What about family relations? Yeah, I think it's all similar. Just make time for yourself. What matters more, their feelings or yours? I care about other people's feelings too, but yes, you should put yourself ahead. Like the whole idea of like self-love, it makes sense, right? Because if you care about yourself, then it's easier to care about other people. If you don't like yourself, any little thing that people might say to you might set you off, right? Or anything that somebody does that you don't like might set you off. But if you like yourself and you like the kind of person you are and the things you've done, not everything. I mean, there's things that I don't like about myself, but it's just how it's going to be. There's no way around it. But I do like the kinds of things that I'm about, and my principles are pretty strong, I believe. My personal work is better than client work. How to match the quality of both? I don't know, man. That's a question that I think I also have a hard time answering. But I will say that you should like my professional work has made my personal work better. I think of it that way, versus that my professional work needs to be just as good as my personal. It's more like one fuels the other, if anything. What if parents don't want you to go into art? That's a heavy one. I'll answer that one last. I think that's a good one. Hey, Jay, have you ever thought of having a cheaper, limited seat version of mentorship where you only do quick paint overs? Yeah, that was the one-on-ones, but I have a different idea. How's it going, AJ? What are some trends in the industry you see changing? AI. I'll talk about that next time. Starting to see companies slow down on releasing artwork. Is there a reason for this? I don't know what that means, but yeah, I don't know if that's true, but I know the AI is going to be a thing, and I have some predictions. It's already kind of happening. Damn, I'm late. Okay, real question here. Which artists do you admire? A lot of them. Go to my art station, go to my like section, you'll see the people that I admire. There's a lot. Oh man, wish was an hour extra. Nah, carbs are delicious. Yeah, carbs are good for you. It just depends where you're getting it from. If you're getting them from refined sources, then it's probably not the best. And the same goes with fat. If most of your diet is coming from processed foods, yeah, you're gonna have a hard time. Hello guys and AJ. For you, what's the game of the decade? I haven't played a games in a while, man. I don't have an answer to that. Let me think of a game that might have came out that was in this decade that I think immediately is pretty good. There's a lot actually. I just don't know. I mean, nah, I'm not gonna answer it. Hey AJ, use I use a lower opacity to do better shading and rendering, but I feel like I'm cheating. No, man, you're not cheating. Whatever makes your artwork pretty good, without actually like stealing other people's artwork, is not cheating. You're fine. Do any of the people mentor landscapes? Sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, yes. Computers are doing all our jobs. Y'all watch 2 minute papers? I do, absolutely. Questions. Drew a lot of simple geometric shapes, and now I can't leave the habit of making everything parallel. My designs suck because all of the are simple cubes and cylinders. All right, that's the last question, along with the parents one. So I'm going to answer this one and then the parents one, and I'm going to continue painting. so, so when you are studying only simple shapes without the context of why you're studying or like doing simple shapes, then you're going to kind of lose the context of why it's important. I always tell people, like, whenever you're studying stuff like that, specifically like that kind of stuff, you have to immediately apply it to what you're trying to do. Like, so draw a robot like right away, and once you do, you'll start to say, oh wait, like I don't really know how to draw a robot, and then but like I could see how this geometric forms will help me, and then the context has changed. So when you go back to study how to draw cubes and stuff, you're gonna have that in mind about that robot failure, right? And when you do that, then you're gonna be better about drawing the robot. You're gonna do a better job. See, that's the problem. Is people study in a vacuum and then they don't necessarily apply why they're even studying that. And it is important to study those types of things. But if you're just doing it aimlessly, your brain's not going to make it stick. There's no context to it. It's like if you're just practicing 3-pointers, like just like shooting 3-pointers at like a hoop, and then all of a sudden you go to play an actual game and you're going against another human being who's like deflecting it and like trying to steal the ball from you. The context has changed about how you should shoot your 3-pointers, right? Because in the past you're just shooting them with nobody putting you at task. But now that you have somebody like coming at you, now you're practicing maybe like sidestepping and shooting a 3-pointer, or leaning back and shooting the 3-pointer. So that way you could help avoid getting deflected, and that's the part that's missing. You're missing the context. And then to the parents, most parents don't know that there's a career in art, so you just got to educate them. You got to like tell them that there's a lot of money to be made if that's what they're worried about, right? Which usually most parents are, and for good reason, because parents want to make sure their kids are okay. And so here's what I usually tell people to tell their parents, if you ever get a chance to talk to them about this, which is, ask them simple questions like, look, I understand that you don't really understand like art and stuff, and like I can see why you think it's a no like a no money making career. Like I can see that, but like think of it this way: like the movie Avengers came out and made billions and billions of dollars, but that movie was made by artists, writers, visual effects artists, concept artists, 3D artists, animators, and all these people make livings doing this stuff. One of America's biggest exports is entertainment. This is including video games. This is in media too, like in video games, movies, TV shows. These are all exported. And even amusement parks, IPs like toys, merchandising, your clothes that you buy, it's all done by some sort of artist. It's everywhere. And I want to be a part of that kind of world. And this is how I have to do it. And you have to show them a plan. You got to show them the kind of people who do work, and show them how they did the work and how they make their money and what they did. And then just show that to them. And then hopefully they're convinced and will give you full support. If not, if you don't do any of that, like, yeah, they're just thinking that you're just going to be like this kind of like loser artist that just makes like bananas and puts them on a wall, you know. And that's like no real, like that's like a lottery ticket. Then might as well just buy a lottery ticket. But if you show them like the names at the end of the credits and you show them their art, like if you go to like any of those Marvel movies and you grab like Ryan Meinerding's painting of Iron Man and you put it next to the still of Iron Man and you show his name in the end credits of Iron Man, they can start to connect the dots. And then you can show them like he went to this school and then he went and worked at this company and now he's the lead. He's in the front of the credits of those movies because he's so important to those franchises and he makes great amounts of money because he's like in charge of like the whole visual aesthetic of those genres. And there's a lot of people who work under him that I know. They're all close friends of mine, and I actually worked with his wife once. She's super sweet, but that's not the point. My point is you got to educate your parents. Of course, being if you just say I want to be an artist, they're not going to understand what that means. So you got to teach them what that means, and they should respect it, especially if you do your homework and you really like show them a really cool PowerPoint, and it demonstrates you're serious. You're not just saying it and they don't support you. Of course they don't, because they don't understand what you're talking about, and so you have to give them some insight. And if they still don't, then just still do it anyway. You know, still work on it. Become the artist that you think you can become, and then prove it to them. All right. I'm gonna go now, guys. I'll see you guys next year. You guys have a great New Year's. Keep painting, keep drawing. I enjoy hanging out with you guys. I want to, like I said, this is something that I want to try to do regularly. I missed, I think, a week or two, but even following my own philosophy, like it's okay. I'll just keep going. I'll just keep doing it. All right, guys. I'll see you guys later, and have a good New Year's.